Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into a story that's, well, it's really complex and quite unsettling.
It really is. We're looking at how a simple act of kindness, something seemingly small, can just spiral.
Yeah, spiraling into obsession, uh, trauma, the difficulty of finding justice. It all centers on Donny Dunn, who is a bartender trying to make it as a comedian in London.
That's right. And our sources, they detail this whole sequence of events starting back in 2015. It's deeply personal for him, obviously, but it also touches on these bigger ideas, about how we interact, how we see vulnerability.
Okay, so let's maybe start right at the beginning. 2015, Donnie's working at a pub.
Yep. And this woman, Martha Scott, comes in. She seems quite distressed.
And Donnie, just trying to be decent, offers her a free cup of tea. Seems pretty straightforward, right? An empathetic thing to do.
Totally. Source 155 really points to that initial kindness. He saw someone struggling, offered a bit of comfort.
But that single moment, that cup of tea, becomes the absolute pivot point for everything that follows. Consequences nobody could have seen coming.
No, not at all. And at first, it probably didn't seem that strange. She starts coming into the pub more often.
Right. Becomes a regular. And initially, her interactions seem almost, well, supportive. She's praising his comedy attempts.
Lavishing praise, yeah. And making these claims about herself, successful barrister, knows famous people, kind of building this image.
There was something about her language, too, wasn't there?
Oh, yeah, Source 159 mentions that. Very formal, theatrical, almost old-fashioned, archaic even. Maybe Donnie just saw it as a quirk at first.
Possibly. But then things take a definite, darker turn.
Big time. Source 160 talks about the messages starting. Email, social media.
And not just a few. Hundreds, every single day.
Hundreds, and the content, it wasn't just friendly, intense declarations of love, yes, but also really graphic sexual fantasies, bizarre rants. It's a huge shift.
And then there's the nickname, Baby Reindeer.
Ugh, yeah. Source 162 mentions that. She starts calling him that obsessively.
And no one really knows why, that specific name.
It's unclear. Adds another layer of just strangeness, psychological weirdness,
Absolutely. This is clearly way beyond just being a bit eccentric now. It's stalking. Plain and simple.
Definitely. And the sources describe this pattern intensifying.
But even with all these disturbing messages pouring in, Donnie didn't immediately, slam the door shut. Why the hesitation?
Well, Source 164 gives some important background. Donnie had his own history, experiences with abuse, which likely made him reluctant to be confrontational. Maybe afraid of making things worse.
Or maybe just hoping it would fizzle out. Source 165 suggests he tried staying polite, thinking she'd just lose interest eventually.
It's a common hope, isn't it? Trying to manage it quietly. But it rarely works with this level of obsession.
And it didn't work here. She escalated, started showing up at his comedy gigs.
Uninvited, yeah. And outside his home, too. That's a huge step up, crossing serious boundaries.
Total invasion of space.
Yeah.
And the messages were getting worse, too.
Source 167 says they became more unhinged, even threatening. He tried blocking her online.
But she just made new accounts.
Exactly. Over and over. Source 168 talks about the paranoia setting in for Donnie, that feeling of constantly being watched, no escape. You can only imagine.
God, yeah. And this wasn't happening in a vacuum either. His personal life was complicated already.
Right. He was living with Liz, who's actually his ex-girlfriend Keely's mom.
Right, that's an unusual setup. And he was starting something new with Terry, a trans woman he met.
Yes. And trying to navigate Martha's escalating harassment while starting this new relationship, it put a huge strain on things.
Did he tell Terry what was going on?
Initially, no. Source 170 mentions he kept the full extent of it from her, maybe trying to shield her, or maybe, I don't know, not wanting to derail things.
But that secrecy creates its own problems. Source 172 and 187 point to the distance and mistrust it caused. The stress must have been immense.
Unbelievable stress. And on top of all that, he's still trying to build this comedy career.
Which wasn't exactly soaring, right? The sources suggest he was already struggling with confidence issues.
Yeah, Source 173 mentions the open mic scene was tough, dealing with insecurities. And then Darian O'Connor comes into the picture.
The established comedy writer initially seemed like a mentor figure.
Appeared that way. Offered help, guidance. Looked like a potential big break for Donnie.
But it wasn't that simple. The sources reveal something much darker there.
Much darker.
Yeah.
And it's awful, because Donnie's dealing with Martha's stalking, and this simultaneously. Source 176 talks about Darian's behavior becoming predatory,
Predatory how?
leading up to and including sexual assault. Source 177 details this happening during the Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Oh my God. So he's being stalked relentlessly by one person and then assaulted by someone he thought was helping him.
Exactly. An incredibly complex and isolating nightmare. Two separate crises intertwined.
And after the assault, he didn't report it.
No. Source 178 talks about the silence, the shame, the confusion, and the fear. Fear of what speaking out might do to his career, which was already fragile.
That fear is so real, especially in industries like entertainment.
Absolutely. And that trauma, Source 179 says, it deeply affected him. It colored his interactions with Martha, with Terry. It sent him into this emotional, mental spiral.
So he's carrying this horrific secret, this trauma, while also trying to fend off an obsessive stalker. It's almost impossible to comprehend the pressure.
It really is. Eventually, though, regarding Martha, he did decide he had to go to the police.
As the harassment just kept getting worse, how did that go? Did they take him seriously?
Sadly, not really at first. Source 181 suggests the police were a bit dismissive. Maybe saw Martha as, eccentric, a nuisance, but not truly dangerous.
Which is such a common, frustrating experience for stalking victims.
It really is, especially when the threats aren't explicit. Source 182 points out Martha was quite cunning that way. She avoided making direct, easily prosecutable threats initially.
So what did the police tell him?
Basically to collect more evidence himself, which must have felt like being completely abandoned.
Totally alone. Like, okay, you deal with this potentially dangerous person yourself, just document it.
Right. And meanwhile, Martha wasn't slowing down. She started targeting people close to him, his parents, Terry.
How? Phone calls.
Yeah, calls and messages with vile threats. And leaving these voicemails for Donny. To increasingly delusional, violent stuff.
He was recording all this, right? Doing what the police asked.
Yes, diligently recording everything, building that evidence file, but still feeling completely powerless against it all.
That feeling of powerlessness, even when you are taking action, that's a huge part of being stalked, isn't it?
Absolutely. The constant boundary violations, the fear, it just grinds you down. Affects your mental state, your ability to trust, everything.
And it sounds like it really ground Dunny down. He started losing gigs, his career suffered.
Yeah, his mental state was deteriorating, impacting his work. Then came this moment, a breaking point, really.
The public incident.
Right. Sources 189, 190 describe Martha disrupting one of his shows, and Donny just broke down. Publicly.
Oh, wow. That must have been awful.
Horrendous. But then, in this incredibly strange twist, Source 191 says the footage went viral.
The breakdown went viral.
Yeah. And somehow, that raw vulnerability, it captured attention. It actually led to unexpected fame, new career opportunities.
That is bizarre. Something so painful becoming a career catalyst.
Completely surreal.
Yeah.
But maybe that unexpected spotlight also pushed him towards confronting everything more directly.
How so?
Well, the sources talk about him deciding to go back to Edinburgh. Deliberately. Back to where the assault happened.
Facing the memories head on.
Seems like it. Sources 192 and 193 frame it as part of a journey towards closure, needing to confront that pain to move forward.
And this led to him incorporating it all into his work.
Yes, a really powerful, raw stand-up set. Source 194, 195 describe him exposing everything Martha's stalking, Darian's abuse.
Wow, laying it all bare on stage.
And apparently that honesty, that vulnerability, had earned him huge respect. It felt like him reclaiming his story, his voice.
A massive turning point. And did this help with the legal case against Martha?
It seems connected. With the evidence Hani gathered, and perhaps the public nature of the story now, Martha was eventually arrested.
Finally, based on all that evidence he collected.
Yes. Source 196 confirms the arrest, and 197, 198 detail the outcome. Conviction, 9 months in prison, and a 5-year restraining order.
Justice of a sort. How did Donny react during the trial seeing her again?
Source 199 describes him watching her break down in court, and his feelings were complex, not just simple victory.
What did he feel?
Pity, apparently, mixed with the fear, the anger from everything she'd put him through, but also, ultimately, relief. Profound relief that it was, legally at least, over.
That mixture sounds incredibly human. It wasn't just black and white.
Not at all. And the sources suggest he's not, magically healed. It's an ongoing process.
But he got his voice back. That seems key.
Absolutely. Source 201 emphasizes that reclaiming his voice, his narrative, and Baby Reindeer, the show itself, became the ultimate expression of that.
The artistic manifestation of the whole ordeal.
Exactly. Sources 202 and 203 frame it not just as about the stalking, but about everything. The trauma, the abuse, being silenced, vulnerability, and somehow survival. Finding a way through.
So, wrapping this up, we've followed this thread from just a simple cup of tea.
Yeah, an act of kindness.
Through years of terrifying stalking, confronting past trauma, the failures of the system, and finding a voice again, through art and justice.
And the takeaways are pretty stark, aren't they? How fragile boundaries can be, how hard it is to navigate unwanted obsession, how support systems can fail.
But also the power of speaking your truth, of storytelling as a way to process and reclaim experiences.
Definitely. It really underscores that.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with something to think about. How do we navigate empathy? That simple act of kindness Donny showed. We do it all the time. But do we consider the ripples? And how do our own histories and society structures affect how we see vulnerability versus potential danger? How do we respond effectively?
It's a lot to reflect on. The complexities are just
Yeah.
a lot to think about.
And that's the unsettling story behind Baby Reindeer. A chilling look into obsession, trauma, and the fine line between kindness and danger. If you found this story intriguing, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into gripping shows and real-life stories. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourself, because sometimes even a small act of kindness can spiral into something unexpected. See you in the next video.